All right, so are you ready to like really dig into Inglourious Basterds, like go way beyond just what happens in the plot?
Absolutely.
You want to like take apart how Tarantino builds this whole narrative,
Yeah.
and how he creates these characters that are so much bigger than life and uses his style to make us really think right. Okay, well, get ready because it's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah, it really is. What
Yeah.
makes Inglourious Basterds, I think, so captivating is that it kind of like goes back and forth between history and fiction.
Yeah.
It's Tarantino's take on World War II,
Right.
and it's a world where he gets to explore, things like revenge and justice and the brutality of war,
Yeah.
but on his own terms.
Yeah, and that whole idea of Tarantino's terms is really important here, right? He's not just giving us like a straight war story. He's giving us this like cinematic revenge fantasy.
Yes, it's almost like he's trying to give us this feeling of release, like a cathartic release,
Yeah.
by rewriting history and allowing the oppressed to win in a way that didn't actually happen,
Right.
And I think one of the most genius ways he does this is through tension.
Yeah.
Like, think about that opening scene, the interrogation with Hans Landa and the farmer.
Oh my gosh, that scene is like a masterclass in suspense.
Yeah.
You're like holding your breath the entire time.
Exactly. And Tarantino's use of dialogue and pacing is just so masterful.
It really is.
The way he frames the shots, that lingering close-up on the farmer's face as Landa's talking,
Yeah.
it just builds and builds this unbearable tension. Like, you just know something horrible is going to happen,
Yeah. Right.
but you don't know what or when.
Yeah.
And that feeling, that unease, it really sets the tone for the whole film.
Yeah.
Do you think that, like, waiting for a rewritten history,
Mm-hmm.
that anticipation that we feel,
Uh-huh.
do you think that adds to the catharsis that we were talking about?
I think it definitely does because
Yeah.
you're waiting for that release, you
Yeah.
know? That moment where Tarantino like breaks all the expectations and delivers justice, but on his terms.
Yeah.
And the way that he structures the film too with those chapters,
Yes.
it really adds to the intrigue, I think.
Absolutely. Each chapter focuses on a different character
Yeah.
or, different motivations.
Yeah.
You get all these different pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And as a viewer, you're trying to put them together and figure out how they're all going to connect.
Totally. And they do connect in
Yeah.
a climax that's like just as chaotic and as tragic as war itself.
It really is.
Okay, so we can't talk about Inglourious Basterds without talking about the characters.
Of course not.
I mean, they're unforgettable.
They are.
Where do we even start?
I think we have to start with Colonel Hans Landa.
Yeah,
I mean, he's one of the most captivating villains in cinema history.
it really is.
Christoph Waltz's performance,
Oh, yeah.
which won an Oscar,
Right.
it's chilling. It's brilliant. And it captures both the charm and the terrifying unpredictability of Landa. He's the kind of villain that makes you question everything.
Yeah, he really does.
Like, you're disgusted by what he does,
Yeah,
but you're also drawn in by how intelligent he is and his wit.
totally.
It makes you wonder if that's what makes him so dangerous.
Yeah, that charisma.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, we have Shosanna Dreyfus,
Yes.
this woman who is just driven by trauma and a desire for revenge.
And she's just the ultimate survivor.
Yeah.
She goes through these unimaginable horrors,
Yeah.
and she comes out of it as this force of nature,
Yeah.
determined to get her own justice.
It's so interesting how Tarantino puts those two characters together. Landa and Shosanna.
It really is.
They're both living under Nazi rule,
Right.
but their reactions are so different.
Completely different.
Landa chooses to manipulate the system.
Yeah.
He decides to thrive within all the evil.
Right.
But Shosanna chooses to fight back and ultimately to get revenge.
Yeah.
It says so much about how people deal with oppression, doesn't it?
It really does. And then, of course, you have the bastards.
Right. Aldo Rain and his team,
Yeah.
they're out there giving out their own brand of justice.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal justice with this like dark sense of humor.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
It makes you question who the good guys really are in this whole story.
It really does. And that's what's so brilliant about Tarantino's characters, right?
Yeah.
He takes these archetypes like the villain, the survivor, the soldier,
Right.
but he makes it so complex.
Yeah.
You never really know, like, where their loyalties lie,
Uh-huh.
or if what they're doing is really justified.
Right. And it all comes back to that idea of moral ambiguity.
It does.
The lines between who's the hero and who's the villain, they get all blurry, especially when it comes to war.
Yeah.
Like take Landa, for example,
Yeah.
when he switches sides at the end.
Right.
Is that like a genuine change of heart?
Right.
Or is he just trying to save himself?
Yeah.
I mean, does it even matter? Does it make him any less of a monster if he ends up helping the bastards?
That's a really good question. And it's one that stays with you after the movie's over.
It really does.
And I think that gets to the heart of what the film's saying about storytelling.
Okay.
You know, Tarantino's kind of playing with history here.
Right.
He creates this fictional outcome that gives us a different kind of closure.
Uh-huh.
He messes with our expectations of what a World War II movie should be.
Yeah.
And by doing that, he makes us look at our own ideas about history and justice.
You're so right. We're used to these World War II stories that have a clear good side and bad side.
Yeah.
But Tarantino flips the script.
He does.
He makes us look at all the gray areas, the stuff that's uncomfortable.
Yeah. What did you think about the dialogue in the film?
Oh, the dialogue?
Yeah.
It's so sharp and engaging.
It is.
It's like every line is a loaded gun.
It really is. And I think the dialogue plays a huge part in how powerful the film is.
Totally.
You know, it's through these conversations, these witty, tense back and forths that we really get to know who these characters are.
I agree with that completely.
Like, think about the scene in the basement tavern
Oh, yeah.
where the bastards are trying to blend in with the Germans.
Right.
The way Tarantino builds that tension through their words, you know, those little slip-ups and misunderstandings.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Oh my gosh, that scene had me on the edge of my seat.
Me too.
And it just shows another level of Tarantino's genius, you know?
Yeah.
His visual storytelling.
Yeah.
He uses all these classic film styles like spaghetti westerns and war films. But then he adds his own flair, you know?
He does.
The colors, the way he frames the shots, the slow motion, the close-ups, it's so visceral.
It is. It's like an opera.
Totally.
He's a true master of cinema.
He really is.
And one of the best examples of his visual storytelling is that scene in the cinema
Oh, yeah.
where Shosanna is putting her plan into action.
Right.
Those close-ups on her face,
Yeah.
the slow motion of the film reels burning.
Yeah.
They're so full of emotion and tension.
They really are.
It's like time slows down. And everything leads up to this big explosion.
It's like you can feel the weight of that moment.
Yeah, and those visual cues are so important for understanding Shosanna.
Yeah.
She's not just looking for revenge.
Right.
She's taking back her power.
Yeah.
Using the tools of cinema to rewrite her own story.
Powerful stuff. And of course, we can't talk about Tarantino without talking about the violence.
We can't.
I mean, it's in all his films, and it's definitely in Inglourious Basterds.
It is.
But do you think it's there for more than just shock value?
I think the violence in this film is graphic,
Yeah.
but it's never just there to be shocking.
Right.
It always has a purpose.
Okay.
Tarantino uses it to really drive home how brutal war is.
Yeah.
To break apart any romantic ideas we might have about it.
Like, it's a reminder that war is messy and chaotic, and a lot of times it's just not fair.
Exactly. And speaking of style, we can't forget about the music.
Oh, the music.
Tarantino soundtracks are iconic.
They really are.
And Inglourious Basterds is no exception.
It fits right in it.
The music in this film is like another character.
Really?
Yeah, it adds so much emotion and tension to every scene.
Wow.
He blends all these different genres, like Ennio Morricone scores surf rock. Even David Bowie.
Yeah.
And somehow it all works perfectly.
That's amazing.
Is there a particular scene where the music really stood out to you?
You know, the one that comes to mind is the scene where Shosanna is getting ready for the premiere.
Okay.
You know, she's putting on her makeup, getting dressed.
Right.
And the music is so haunting and melancholic.
It is.
It perfectly captures how important this mission is to her and all the emotions she's going through.
Yeah.
It adds so much depth to a scene that could have just been about her getting ready.
Yeah, I agree. And that's Tarantino for you.
Yeah.
His use of music is so intentional, so evocative.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to use sound to transport us, to make us feel more connected to the story.
Yeah.
It's another tool he uses, and he's a master at it.
Totally. So with all these things working together, the characters, the themes, the dialogue, the visuals, the music, what do you think Tarantino's really trying to say with Inglourious Basterds?
That's a good question.
What makes it a film that people want to watch again and again and talk about and analyze?
I think at its heart, Inglourious Basterds is really a film about the power of cinema.
Oh, wow.
Tarantino isn't just reimagining history.
Right.
He's using film as a way to explore, how we relate to the past, to violence, to justice.
Yeah.
He's making us think about how we create stories and how those stories shape how we see the world.
It's like he's showing us this mirror
Yeah.
to how fascinated we are with things like violence and revenge and rewriting history to fit what we want. And he does it in a way that's both entertaining and kind of disturbing.
Yeah.
Like, we get caught up in the action and the bastards trying to get revenge,
Right.
but then he makes us face the moral consequences of their actions.
Yeah. It's that constant back and forth that makes the film so interesting.
It really does. And when he blurs the lines between good and evil,
Yeah.
he forces us to question everything we thought we knew.
Like, can we really cheer for the bastards even though they're so brutal?
Right.
Is Landa any less of a monster just because he's smart and charismatic?
Good questions.
These are questions that stay with you even after the movie's over.
Do they make you really think about your own morals?
Yeah, it's like Tarantino's challenging us to judge these characters, to put them into neat little boxes of good and bad.
Right.
But the film won't let us do that.
It doesn't.
It makes us see how complicated people are, even during war.
It reminds us that history isn't this fixed thing, you know?
Right.
It's a bunch of different perspectives, different interpretations, stories told over and over again.
And Tarantino's playing with that idea,
He is.
showing us how film can change history, how it can make us feel better, how it can give us a different ending.
Exactly. So even though Inglourious Basterds might not be historically accurate,
Right.
it makes us really think about our connection to the past, to storytelling, and to how film can change the way we see things. Yeah, it's a film that challenges us, provokes us, and stays with us long after we've seen it.
It really does. It makes you want to watch it again and again.
Yeah, and each time you notice something new.
And it leaves you thinking about justice and revenge and what it means to be human.
So true. And as we wrap up our deep dive into Inglourious Basterds,
Yeah.
I have one final question for you, the listener.
Okay.
When Tarantino blurs those lines between good and bad, does it make you rethink what a hero is and what a villain is, especially during a war?
I'd love to know what you think.
Inglourious Basterds is a film that starts conversations and challenges our views, and that's what makes it so great.
It really does. Thank you for joining us as we explored all the twists and turns and the characters and the ideas in this film.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.